Welcome to Winspiration Radio, Growth Principles for Humanity and Progress. Join us when we share information, wisdom, and ideas how to create an extraordinary future for us all. The future is open. We together decide what will be in it. Welcome to another episode of Winspiration Radio, Growth Principles for Humanity and Progress. So how can we grow and how can we create a wonderful future for us? There is a lot of topics, and one I think is very important. Do we dare to say what we really believe? Are we having enough courage to do it? Maybe you all know, and if not, go on YouTube and look for the Asch experiment that was done, and the kind of test were 5 people, 4 were kind of actors, and there was something shown like a line, how long is the line or which line is longer, and the 4 were it would say, oh, this is shorter, this is not, and it was wrong. And the real person who were tested often didn't dare to say the truth. And I think if we really want to have a super future, we need to learn to dare to speak up and speak truth. And therefore, I'm so happy that Elliot Kay from London is joining me today. We have a story together for a few years. We met him a long time ago. I don't know, was it 15, 16, 17 years ago, the first time when we talked, and he was in a transition period, what to do next. And then he started coaching business, seminars in London. I attended once a seminar, really impressed what he do. And then a big part of his life today is speaking. So the coaching, the mentoring, and the speaking. He is also giving out a speaking award for now 6 years, if I understand it right. So he is an expert, and that's why I love to talk with him today about not just how to speak, so much more what's holding people back, what can we do to be free and talk about it. So welcome and thank you for being there, Elliot, and yes, picking your brain and your heart.
That would insinuate that I have one, so it'll be interesting to pick one. So let's let's do this. I'm very excited to be here. And I remember obviously the way we met was you on stage, and you were on stage with Bob Proctor in London, and you're talking about your life and your business being like a film director, like who's the actor, who's this. So the reason we're here today is because me seeing you on stage and then approaching you, say, Wolfgang, what would it take for you to mentor me? And so years ago when you mentored me, that was the beginning. And here we are, still in touch. Every few years we circle back, we meet up, we disappear, and then we come. So it's been a great cycle in that respect, and I'm very excited to be here.
Yes, and like I said, I saw you on stage and have a wonderful seminar, and I saw not only the content was good, so how you interacted with the people was great. But that was just more the coaching part.
Yeah.
Then I followed more from the outside that you there was some contest who is the biggest speaker in London or UK or whatever. So and you wrote books.
Yep.
Yes, so you're an author as well. But
that's my 7th. I'm on my 7th now. Yeah.
Yes.
So 6 published, 1 in the making.
1 in the making. Yeah. Is this the one about speaking?
So I've got 2 about speaking. So Speaking Fluent Sell is about speaking. I've got How to Stand Out and Be More Giraffe as a speaker. So that's also about speaking. Then there's an ebook, which is 125 tips to being a powerful and profitable speaker. And the last book I wrote is about executive presence, which is the next level really for leadership, for those innovators, for people who really, really want to completely not only own the space, but make an impact, but do it in a way that's non-forceful, it's non-scarcity driven. So if you look at certain leaders, like let's say Oprah, Elon Musk, right? And they don't always have to be names, but they can just walk into a room and hold the room with their presence, right?
Yeah.
So that's one aspect of executive presence. Obviously, emotional intelligence is important, confidence, articulation, but so executive presence is really the next level to really being a influential speaker. And I finished the book on it now, and I'm actually sitting on it. I'm actually not sure that's the book I want to release. I don't know. I've written 33,000 words. Like, is that the book I want to write? Which, like 2 months ago, I was adamant I'm going to publish it, and now I'm just in a different space. But we're not talking about books anyway. So yeah, that's and it's called.
But it's very interesting what you said. Just okay, there are people entering in the room, and just they can hold the energy on everybody. Oh, here comes some personality, not just just a body.
It was so much more.
We know from influence, we could use the word influential also, to influence it, to be a good leader, it's also how you can speak. Partly what you say, what you think, but also you dare to speak up. That because the names you mentioned were the people who dare to say what they believe.
Yeah, and I think it's a really interesting time in history as we're interviewing, or we're having this interview. I think what's very interesting to witness is the the phenomena, right, of not just daring to speak, but daring to deal with the feedback or the blowback you potentially could have as a leader, as someone that doesn't think mainstream, doesn't behave mainstream, doesn't operate mainstream, doesn't go with what's fashionable. And I think right now, for you to be a speaker, there has to be a whole different layer to you. And that's really being trained, which is people in the media do regularly, but speakers don't do regularly, is how you manage feedback, how you manage really challenging, tough, blowback, for example. Because I think a lot of people are very, the speaking comes with a dreamlike image to it. I'll speak and people love me
on the stage, and but I don't want to do the work in the studio.
Well, I don't want to do the work. That's one side, but the other side is no one's going to say anything bad to me. No one's going to give me bad feedback, right? And I think a lot of speakers neglect to train that aspect: how to manage a tough room, how to manage those hard questions. How do you respond, right? If you look at Obama, whether you like him or not, his ability, his executive presence was his ability to remain calm when all the press was firing these hard, tough questions out, and he just had this calmness about him, right? Because he trained very hard for those moments and trained a lot. So I think a lot of speakers neglect that. And if we look what's going on right now in the world, if you dare to put out a counter mainstream opinion, which again is subjective, then the other side is going to attack you, right? Sure. So, but it's so magnified right now as we're recording this interview that anybody that puts an opinion that is the mainstream can be such a big backlash.
Yeah, but it's not only that you have to get these kind of feedback, because on a level of duality, you never
have to accept it.
Yeah, you can get, obviously, like DeMartini says, 50% simply for me and the others against me. But the way you get the feedback, that is so much tougher.
Right, exactly. And I think these days it's a lot easier for people to be fierce and horrible. And you have to learn to manage that if you're going to lead, if you're going to innovate, if you're going to be the forefront of humanity, if you're going to be that person, right? So if you're going to be the next female, male, non-binary version of Elon Musk, who for years has stood at the complete extreme of innovation. Someone that wakes up and says, my purpose in life is to save humanity, doesn't function on the same lane with as us, no matter how much we think about it, right?
Yeah.
And you're going to speak and express yourself in a way that's going to challenge people's whole paradigm of their world.
Yes.
You need to learn to either go, I don't care, about that or
Mm.
manage that, right? And again, that's why I think, you know, Elon Musk as a speaker or as a influence, as a force, can polarize people. People that really love him, equally they can really hate him,
Yes.
but he makes no apologies for who he is and what he has to say. Again, because if we tie it back to purpose, if I'm going to save humanity,
Mhm.
right, which is his purpose,
Mhm.
then I don't have time to listen to this.
Yes.
I'm on a mission, right? So when it comes down to the aspect of speaking, Wolfgang, which is what we started off, these days you must be a far bigger, more rounded speaker. There's a lot more elements to being a speaker than 20 years ago, right?
Yeah.
Where there was, you know, and I think, again, a lot of the modern day speakers they're just a lot of ones that we come across, the top 1% to the top 1%, and they'll always kind of maintain that as long as they work on it. But I feel a lot of this sort of 95%ers and below aren't so rounded. They're not so averse to the tougher side of being a speaker,
Well,
right?
you
So
said it needs to be the difference in the last 20 years. Is it, like we said, it's just more feedback, or because it's so much tougher?
I think both, right? I think, first of all, there's so many more speakers, right?
Okay.
Once the pandemic kicked in, so
Mhm.
many people became speakers. The
Mhm.
competition is fierce.
Yeah.
The demands are higher. If you're a paid speaker, the demands are so much higher than they used to be. It used to be, even 10 years ago, you know, I've been around now for running my own business for 15 years, right? So a decade and a half. And when I was starting, I was like, hey, I'm a speaker. Great. Let's book you. What's your fee? It was never an issue. You were going to get paid, period.
Yeah.
Now, now if you're a paid speaker, you're in a very special almost group, because a lot of speakers don't get paid,
Mhm.
or they don't know how to ask for money, or they're on the speak to sell camp, which is a different camp. But there's nothing wrong with that, by the way. But also, there's so many more speakers to whatever, unless you're massively niched or you're massively, you know, you're a celebrity, you've done something exceptional.
Yeah.
So it's a lot harder. The demands are higher.
Yeah.
And also, I think the 20 years ago, even 15 years ago, the whole aspect of being a speaker was the assumption that it's a motivational and inspirational or business speaker. Now there's so much more to that, right? The kind of the topics of speaking so much wider. And that's why you have to, you know, work so much harder. And being a speaker means understanding marketing and understanding business, not just showing up and speaking, which is what it used to be.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, you're speaking a lot longer than I have, so you can
Yeah, well,
give me your side of things.
Like in a lot of other areas, if you go 20, 30, 40 years back, at least when I grew up in Germany, soccer,
Yes.
though they just needed to play football. Yeah, they needed to play. Today, they need to be good in interviews and everything.
Right.
Handle also the booze and all these. It's the more
Yeah.
you
And the person,
okay.
sorry.
Let's make a kind of a trip backwards first before we come back to this, because you said people or speakers forget to develop that, but they're speaking already, so they are maybe on stage already. But there's also the saying that one of the greatest fears, some statistics says even more or stressier than dying, is speaking in front of people. So what is it? And maybe that's connected, that they like to forget it to train the feedback, because they, in the beginning already, the first step, they don't dare really to speak. So what is your experience in the coaching or when people come and want to learn or speak, and how much you need to train them to open up, or what are the main blocks, why they are not speaking?
A lot of time, I mean, there's so many fears around speaking, right? And they're often nothing to do with speaking, but speaking would be the vehicle that would expose them. So if you look at, you know, let's look at speaking. So what are some of the fears when people won't speak or they struggle to speak? Well, the fear of getting it wrong, right? There's the fear of getting caught out, imposter syndrome. You don't know what you're talking about. There's the fear of embarrassment, whatever that looks like. There's the fear of people getting bored when they see you speak. I'm just going to bore it. There's the fear that you don't know enough, right? And then there's the fear of, you know, someone coming at you, right? And generally there's a fear of you not doing a good job. So there's a lot of fear around that. Now, of course, when you're standing on stage, even virtual or non, you're still exposed, right? There's nowhere to hide, right? I can't hang up the phone. I can't, I mean, on Zoom, you can just go, oh, technical issues and unplug, right? But I think the issue, the whole premise that you've got nowhere to go because you're on stage, because it was the famous guy whose name I can't remember back in the 19th century said that speaking is the biggest magnifying glass that you can place on yourself. It exposes all your strengths and your weaknesses. Now, we're taught that weakness is bad, right? It's bad to have weaknesses. We're not taught to look at our weaknesses and see how we can turn them into strengths, right? Again, a lot of footballers, if you use football as an example, a lot of footballers work to their strengths but don't work on their weaknesses as long as it works. I think we should always review our weaknesses and see what we can turn into a strength. Doesn't necessarily mean we always have to. So as a speaker, you know, to overcome the fear, there's ways. Like these days, you'll know this, Wolfgang, you know, there's ways to deal with pretty much anything, right? Now, if it's massively traumatic, then yes, therapy. You need psychologists. You need someone whose job it is to get into your head and unpack that and heal that. I wouldn't go to a coach for that if it's traumatic, if it's that traumatic that you know you're shivering and you can't leave the house, right? If it's a medium fear, then yeah, use a coach, neurolinguistic programming, emotional freedom technique, mindfulness, hypnosis. All those things can really help you overcome the fear. And here's the thing, right? I think it's also this need and desire for everything to be perfect. I think that's one of the biggest inhibitors of people taking action generally, not just in speaking, in life. If we focus on speaking, if you think that you're going to always deliver the perfect speech, you'll never speak, right? You just won't, period. And I think that's a big obstacle, the seek of perfection, this, I have to say it brilliantly, and every time that I speak, I'm going to get a standing ovation, everyone's going to love me, right? Like, you know, it's like, that's more delusion. But I think a lot of people think that, and they won't do it unless there's a guarantee that it's perfect. And I think that's an inhibitor.
It is interesting. Just DeMartini always says, if I get a standing ovation because of the law of polarity, maybe 50% really want to applaud me, and the others just to have not enough courage to keep seated. Yeah,
exactly. Absolutely.
But I just want some more when you said, where's the edge? We don't know. For trauma, and you need a therapist. But I grew up also as a kid, shut up when adults are talking. And everything and like this. And I went to school and I needed to have the right answer. It was not about training, question and thinking. And it was never important what I thought, what I wanted, or my true self. So that was always difficult. And then you need to get then in school grades and everything. So yes, kind of training, you need to be perfect. So there's a lot of wrong beliefs and fear. And in your coaching practice, or especially now when this is a mixture of coaching to speak. You did business consulting, and so it's maybe not always about speaking, but we know also speakers can be more successful CEO if you can speak and get your message across. But how you helped best, or is a simple ideas you can share with the listener to get rid of different beliefs, see the world a little bit different, and that they at least open up. So what did you do?
think that some of them I alluded to, right? I think, yes, like you say, there's the children to be seen and not heard. And you see this a lot with women as well. Like, you
Mm-hmm.
know,
Mm-hmm.
even in their body language, there's something called placating when you're kind of like
Mm-hmm.
almost begging. And you see
Yeah.
that a lot with women, a lot more with women than with men. So
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of childhood memories that come to mind, or not memories, programming when we
Mm-hmm.
start to speak. And it can also go back to, you mentioned school, right? You stood up and you read in school, and maybe you made a mistake and everyone laughed. You stood up at assembly and everyone laughed at you because you said something, and that leaves an imprint, right? And that imprint then becomes something that we filter through when the situation is similar.
Mm-hmm.
So the way we need to do is we need to find that imprint, dissolve it. Now, if it's so traumatic, as they say, please go to clinical psychologist, like really go to someone that's spent years studying. If it's not clinical, it's not like you're afraid of it, but you can overcome it. Several things you can do. And there's finding the right one for you. That's the other thing. You need to kiss a lot of frogs to find your prince or princess in terms of what works for you. I don't mean a partner. This isn't a dating
Yeah.
interview, right? But in the sense of, look, neurolinguistic programming is a fantastic tool. Emotional freedom technique is a fantastic tool. Hypnosis, not hypnotism,
Yeah.
hypnosis is a fantastic tool. Cognitive behavioral hypnotherapy and or therapy is a fantastic tool, right? All these things help free your mind, but also relax your mind. If you look, you can go to slightly deeper things like access consciousness. Feel free to Google these, everybody. I don't endorse nor, it's like what works for you. I do a variety of things. Access consciousness is a good one. So all of these aspects, it's about testing for at least several times what works for you. So when I don't work with a lot of people on confidence, but when they're special people and I really want to work with them, these are the tools and techniques I would teach them.
Mm-hmm.
Visualization, fantastic tool, as we know, pioneered in the former USSR. The athletes burst onto the scene, and they're like, how are you doing this? We use visualization because it fires off the same neurons. Your muscles respond to the same imagery as you do if you were doing it. So all of these tools and techniques are really great. Exercise, doing a bit of exercise. You got the fear, do some exercise. Don't do a marathon, but
Mm-hmm.
something that helps you balance out the chemical imbalance that fear creates. Then it turns to excitement. And I've got to say this, Wolfgang, there is no substitute to practice and experience. I'm working with a variety of businesses now. Obviously, my focus is on experts who speak. And this guy, I was doing a session with him on Friday, and he said to me, so what do I need to do now to make this a great talk? And I just said, practice. And he just laughed.
Yeah.
He's just like, he just burst out laughing
Yeah.
because you've got all the components. What do I need? Just practice it 50 times, 100 times,
Yes.
right? And people forget that. I think because we live in the day and age of instant gratification, we forget that there is no substitute to practice. And something I talk about in terms of overcoming fear is practice what can go wrong just as much as what can go right. So this is what I'm saying about the other side.
Yes. Yes.
People don't practice what happens if the slides go down. People don't practice what if I get tough questions. They'll just practice the presentation. So one of the things I used to do, especially when you came to see me like a Power to Succeed, because I was so challenging people's paradigms and model of the world, right? I would literally practice being heckled. What if someone said this at this point? And I would practice responding. And what if, and again, a lot of speakers don't do that. So if you want to overcome the fear, work out what the fear is, use some tools, but practice what can go wrong, because then you're more confident. Should anything go wrong, you know what to do about it. And there's no substitute to experience, right? We can learn to drive a car, we can pass our test, but nothing's going to help us to be able to be great drivers than driving, right? And that's how you overcome your fear.
And when you say experience or practice and experience, you talked a lot about the fear or what I experience is sometimes because our training childhood, we create a kind of image of our persona, what we're not allowed to do. And it can feel like not only throwing up, so I need to die if I change this.
Yeah.
And when you go through those shitty moments on stage or whatever it is, I think that the main experience is I survived. I'm still alive, because it's such a fear is such a fantasy. And just bringing it up, is I never really had a good training, but I had tough situations as a student. I started to sell advertising for a kind of newspaper, and I was walking in front of the shop until I was wet, totally wet.
Oh no!
And then going in there, and gosh, it will kill me if I ask him for, can you maybe advertise in this magazine or everything? Oh, I was forced to speak, and I was shaking. Just short book that says, and looked like a toast. And
yeah. Oh yeah, gosh.
But afterwards, whatever I did, I survived. And I think that is a most important feeling, that this fear is fantasy, even if it's so shadow, like Churchill said, if you go through hell, keep going. Huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know anyone that's actually died of public speaking. I mean, I don't. You know, there might be someone, but I don't know anyone that's actually, it might felt like it.
Yes.
You know, and the other thing, and just very quickly, you know, I think we need to learn to embrace our fears and not see them as negative. Yes. Again, I think a lot of people see fear as bad, weakness as bad.
It was one of your the title of your first book, that you allow yourself to fail or something, huh?
It's your right to be wrong. Yeah, that's my very. That's a very 2008. Yes, but that's it. And I think if we gave ourselves more permission to get it wrong, we're more likely to get it right. And I think that's the key aspect of this as well. It's okay. We're all afraid of something.
Yeah, and coming out of the idea of we're living in a one polarity world, now as always, there's no bad without good, and there's no good without bad. So whatever happens, what I feel bad, is just my judgment, and just be open to see the good in it. After we just went a little bit deeper where the problem comes from, the fear comes from. And at the moment, okay, for sure, I understand it. We are working easily as coaches or speaker training with kind of professionals already, because it's also who pays for it. But what is your idea? And I'll at least try it with you here now in this show, helping more people just to get an idea, to dare to open up, to speak. Or what are you doing actually besides working with individuals? When we talk about serving humanity with speaking, what is your idea? What could be done to help more people?
I think the first thing that people need to do is tie their speaking to purpose, right? I think that's quite an important aspect. You know, we've mentioned Elon Musk, and obviously he operates on such a high level. And I don't mean that we're on a low level, he's just on a different level. So I think a lot of people, when I work with them, when I first work with them, I'm like, what is your purpose for your speaking? And if it's not tied into a purpose that's bigger than yours, if it's tied into I just want to make a quick buck, I just want to be famous, unless that fame is deeply like ingrained in you to be famous, then the moment you're going to get rejected, the moment you're going to stop, you're going to give up, right?
Yeah.
So again, what is that purpose? And my purpose is very simple. It's to be a great husband, to be a great father, and to serve experts or entrepreneurs globally. And that's what drives me. So, and purpose really kicks in the tough times. I feel when things are great, I'm on purpose. It's amazing. But when things are tough, that's when you go, right. Yeah. Staying on purpose is crucial. So that's the first thing. And again, if you tie your speaking into purpose, then actually what you find naturally, your fear is gradually reduced because it's about something greater. So if you were speaking to heal the worst diseases in the world, or you're a spokesperson for a political movement, it becomes about, I have to stand on stage because people need to hear this. So whatever I'm feeling right now is so not important because I have this message. So again, if you can tie into purpose, that will be a massive, we're talking about humanity, right? You know, that's where the change makers, the deal breakers, all that, because they understand it's about something far greater than just them. Not that you're not great. And I think that's one of the key aspects of minimizing fear and making an impact and being influential when you speak. And again, we can list about a whole bunch of people. By the way, Dale Carnegie was the person's name. I couldn't remember who said about the magnifying glass, right? If you look at, someone like, and someone that really got this very early on, if we look at Michael Jordan, he understood that to be more than just a basketball player, he had to communicate like a brand. He made whatever he did about something bigger than just basketball, right? And so that's why when he was at college or university, whichever you want to call it, he studied communication, and he really understood the importance of him standing in front of a camera and how he articulated to really cement his place in history. And he stayed out of politics for years and years and years. It's only recently he's got involved in sort of, various causes to do with racism. And I think a lot of us could really, if we could understand that when we're standing on stage, we're standing for something more than just, I'm a speaker, then it becomes about who you're impacting and who you're influencing. Yes. And that, to me, is one key thing. If anyone listens to this today, revisit your purpose piece for why you want to go on stage. And then that will allow you to evaluate the level of impact you're going to have. This is about humans being more, or hitting humanity more. And then also, adding to that, Wolfgang, is if you stand for something strong, solid, powerful, then also that gives you the right ammunition to deal with the negative feedback we started to talk about at the beginning. So that's one thing people can do.
Oh, that is just very important. There's two things I just want to mention again. It says I want to be a speaker, or I am a speaker. I would say we need to understand we are not the profession. Is something more. We use this kind of occupation to bring the message in the world. And when you said focus on the purpose, it reminds me. Someone said Dalai Lama was once asked if he can still experience fear, and he says yes, sure. And then what you do then? I focus on my intention. And I think this is so important when you talk about the purpose or the message you want to bring across. If you focus on this, then this ego fear is gone.
Right. I mean, you only have to look at someone like Malala, right? And what she was willing to go through.
Yeah.
Because of what she stood for. And now when you see her on stage, again, this small little person with such huge presence, right? And she's very small, and almost she comes across so timid, right? Yet she holds huge rooms, But for her, it's about girls' education, so it's about something greater. Obviously, she's an extreme version because she got shot in the face because of what she stood for. Right, in an environment that didn't welcome. But that's what I mean. When you're tied into something that's so important, then you'll be willing to go through that. And I'm not saying everyone has to get shot in the face, right? And she survived, thank God.
Yeah.
But it's that kind of level of commitment. And one thing I always ask people, I say, if you had the cure for the worst disease in the world, would you mind running up and down Oxford Circus in the UK shouting, I have the cure for all? Would you? People go, no, of course not. Right, whatever, COVID, cancer, name the disease you want to put there. Then that's the level of belief you need to have when you're standing on stage, right? And that's the level of purpose you should really have when you stand on stage. Because when times are tough, and you've been there with your own story, if you don't have a purpose, it's a very dark place to end up. But when you have a purpose, you can end up with the darkness, but you still see the light. Big difference.
And you focus on the light.
And you focus on light, exactly, not the darkness.
In history of planet Earth, we have a lot of examples. Maybe you're the first one, and this way the only one at the moment who sees this or has a cure. But then you need to start, even if you're the only one seeing the truth, and it's combined with your inner truth. And there I have another question. I'm curious. I think also when you say just go for money or just want to be a speaker on stage, I use it for my question. The word it's just 3D level. Yeah, you're living on the 3D world. You want to hear, impress, and it's a kind of only body experience. My body shows up. I speak, and I want them to clap and pay. But when you talk about purpose, or have an example for, wow, what an experience or appearance, there comes something more. Let's say simply it's a spirit. So that we also need to understand we are so much more. We are not just our body, we are so much more. And I don't know if you train this or you teach this, how can I show up as a whole, not a human being, maybe it's to 3D level, but with my spiritual body, with my intellectual body, my emotional body, and physical body. And the message purpose comes normally not from the 3D level.
Yeah. The way I would train this out as such, it's almost what we call about when you're in flow and you just stand on stage and then you got off stage and you're like, what was that? And it just comes through you, and it's almost like you're channeling it a bit like, Esther Hicks, but not to that level that you become someone else. I feel that that's a level 3, confidence. So you got level 1, which is it's moving forwards, you're overcoming a fear. Level 2, you're standing there, you're doing your competent job, you're doing a good job. But level 3 is you almost completely let go of everything because it's so well trained, right? You're so well drilled that you're able to elevate yourself to a different level of speaking. And I talk about that actually I think I talk about Empowered to Succeed, and even in Speak Influence Sell. It's when you have your moment as a speaker, and that's that moment where you suddenly become aware that you're almost outside of your body, and everything is flowing and everyone is laughing and smiling and crying and clapping when they should, and you just have that moment. So to get there, for me, it's about putting massive amounts of time in, huge amounts obviously of training and development, but also an innate ability to completely let go. It's a bit like a manager of a football team. He has to let go. He has to let the players play, right? Except in this one, you're the player, the manager, and the goalkeeper, right? And the sponsor and everything else. So in that respect, you're just completely in flow that everything lands. And that comes from investing time and training and the ability to go. So if you look at, some of the biggest speakers in the space, they have an innate ability just to kind of let it out because they've done it for so long. They've trained so hard that even if something isn't quite right or something goes wrong, they're so in their flow, it just doesn't affect them. They're like a swan, right? Underwater's like this, maybe, but when you're in your flow, you're not even doing this. Your legs aren't flapping underwater. You're just gliding along. And that takes time and experience and years sometimes before you arrive there. But again, most speakers will give up before arriving there. And that's when, again, because there's so many times I've been on stage where someone's asked me a question, this answer just come out of my mouth. And they say, can you say that again, please? I'm like, actually, no, I can't, because I can't actually remember what I just said. And they're like, well, I'll just get the recording. I'm like, great. Because often, it's called the channeler archetype, right? And you're just channeling. You're connected to such a spiritual path that you're channeling the answer. And that's such a high level of speaking. I don't always go there, but the key is you're out of your head. You're not in your head. You're in your heart 100%, and you're being guided by this force. So that to me is the answer to your question.
Oh, that's good. Yeah. And I can make the analogy when I was in driving school, and there was not an automatic car. So, oh gosh, where's this and where's all these switches, or not even switches. That was I needed to focus really on the 3D world. But after a while, I practiced enough so that I could focus so much more on and even talk with someone. And kind of a difficult situation, I still can talk. And when you just say the channeling, say, well, that's why we try also to express with winspirations. You always be in spirit, connected with something higher. If it's your message, it's whatever it is, even if you don't understand it, where your answer's coming from. And I remember I was in a seminar with Dan Sullivan in Chicago, and he always had a person in the back because he had a kind of seminar was always the same, but he didn't always say the same. So there came something new. So extra a person which needed to follow and write down what was new. Because like you said, he couldn't remember. He just didn't realize that he said something new, so that they afterward could check, is this valuable enough to put in the program and learn it and deliver it again. But this is super good. So if we understand that, or we talk about that, how to go in this situation of flow? How do you train this besides just practice that you not focusing on the body anymore? So,
I think experience. It is literally about experience. I don't know if there's a way to train it, besides obviously learning the tools, implementing the tools, and becoming the vehicle and being open to that possibility. How does, obviously the Dalai Lama has gone through years and years of spiritual growth, being guided by various gurus. And I think something inherently inside you needs to tap into that, and I think that, I don't know if there's an exercise you can do, right? Like, do this 10 times and you'll do it. I believe it's about the experience, and it's about being embodied in you. I'll give you an example. One woman we trained years ago, actually, she's a sleep therapist. And we do this training, how to handle hecklers. And for 2 years she spoke and everything was great. 2 years later, one person asked her this really heckly type question, and she just instantly recalled the training, was able to manage them, and then put it back again. And it was embedded in her. So when it comes to that channeling, when it comes to kind of that flow state, it's all about the minutes you put in. It's all about the experience you gain. If you look at, the likes of Tony Robbins, right? While he's been doing Unleash the Power Within for 30 plus 40 years now, and he just does it now. He's able to, obviously there's parts that must be the same, which is why you see him go and read at the back there, because he'll just lose direction otherwise. So it's because of his experience of so many years, so he's able to channel things, change things, twist things, pick the right story. And a lot of the kind of top speakers that have that innate ability change the room, change the mood. And to me, that's just minutes. It's minutes. It's minutes on the pitch, right? It's those 10,000 plus that allows you to do it. It becomes instinctive. It becomes completely intuitive. But that comes from timing experience.
Then
is my answer to that. I don't know if there's a training to do that.
For me, first of all, what you said, okay, the more you practice, the more it comes also natural. And it's stressy for people when they feel it's not congruent. So in the beginning, you like in the beginning, you also focus, do I have my arm right at this? So I was also busy with watching me doing it right. And after a while, if you practice enough, you don't care really about that. You spoke also about the purpose. And when I just got an idea, I want to know what you think about it with these answers, or you never said before. I think it helps also when you have a vision or the purpose.
Yes.
You see the picture, what you really, really want. Although if you mentioned now Elon Musk, he wants to save humanity or bring it to the Mars. No, when he talks about Israel and Gaza, he suddenly, I never heard him before, is sharing ideas how we solve it for humanity. So the more you have your vision, and then you get difficult questions, so much easier than just pick something out of the vision.
Yeah.
That it comes in. Maybe nobody asked me that before, so I didn't see it in my vision yet.
Yeah. I think for me, I know there's lots of different schoolings around vision. But for me, a vision is your visual representation of your purpose.
Yes.
If they're not in alignment, you've got two different postcodes and you're trying to drive to one.
Yeah.
Right. And your sat nav's going, oh, wait, do I go purpose? Do I go vision? It's got to be a complete visual of your purpose.
Yes.
So therefore, yes. And of course, if you're visual, or even if you're into the law of attraction, right, and you want to kind of bring that into reality, you have a vision, right? I mean, the thing is, it's what's behind the vision board that really matters. So purpose. But if you don't inherently believe in the vision board you're looking at, it doesn't matter what's on it. So again, I think there's a lot of psychology that needs to go into the vision board. But yes, then if you've got, look, I have a vision that X and I have a vision that X. And when you're kind of having those tough, especially volatile, emotional conversations, when you're challenging people's paradigm of industries, it doesn't have to be of their psychology, that you can't do it this way. Look at Shazam, right? When Shazam came out, the technology didn't exist, but he had a vision for what this technology will do, right? And then he had to wait for that technology. In fact, he had to work with, I think, a space engineer to develop the technology. And it was years later. There's a time where you had to dial Shazam on a handheld phone. There wasn't mobiles. And you hold it to the speaker and it would call you back with the name. It cost you £4 in the UK, right? Which is like $50 now. But hey, we're not talking about currency. And, so he had a vision for it and he stuck to the vision. Also, if you look at not Spielberg, Lucas, the technology for what he wanted Star Wars to look like didn't exist, but he got on with something in the meantime, which again, groundbreaking in itself. But it's always a visual representation of your purpose.
Yes.
And the belief behind it, right? And if it's not there, I mean, you worked a lot with Bob Proctor, God bless his soul. It's all about what's behind something.
Yes.
Right? Yes. And if your belief is in alignment with your purpose and your vision, you're not going to achieve it. Same with speaking. Have a vision for your speaking, have a purpose for your speaking. They need to be aligned. And then you've got to work on the beliefs to get you there. The other thing I will say is, I'm sure you've heard this before, is people underestimate what they can achieve in 5 years and overestimate what they can achieve in a year. In a year's time, I'm going to be on stage with Tony Robbins in front of 20,000 people, Now that could happen, right?
Yeah.
But, it probably won't. Not in a year.
Yeah.
Maybe in 5. And I think that's the other thing that a lot of speakers get really wrong. And myself, I've been guilty of that. Know that when I was a lot younger, clearly I'm very young now. But, I think I could accelerate things, and you can't always beat the time of nature, right? Or the nature of time. You can't. Yeah. Things need to take time. I can decide I want to be really muscly, 6-pack, but I have to put the work in to develop the muscle. Period. It doesn't matter how much I visualize it. Right?
Yeah, but it can help you. And I agree totally. The real vision is really how you see your purpose in the world, if you follow it through, and not just a kind of collage of goals. Right. More ego-driven than really pictures from your vision to support you, to remind what you're going for.
Yeah.
Elliot, it is so great talking with you. And if other people want to reach you or to get more of you, where should they go to?
I guess the easiest options are, I'm only on LinkedIn, really. You're not going to find me anywhere else. So Elliot Kay, Elliot Kay. On LinkedIn, feel free to reach out, follow me, add me, just say, Wolfgang's interview, so I know where he came from. And the other thing is just go to my elliotkay.com website, ELLIOTKAY.com. Those are the easiest. Those are the easiest to remember, the easiest to find. But make sure you spell it correctly, ELLIO1T,
yes.
KAY.com.
Because
there's a double T out there, and he messes things up for me. Right. So that's how people can get in touch with me.
Yes, super. And you offer courses, individual So where really someone wants to learn, I really can recommend, and you hear it, he has the heart, like we say, at the right spot. And so he's teaching the practical stuff and the vision, the purpose. And thank you, Elliot, very much for giving us insight and allowed us to pick your brain and learn something from your heart, your vision. And I hope, listener, you got some value out of it, and please share. And yes, turn
Thank
to
you.
you want to do more in the public area. Thank you, Elliot.